Welcome back, my gamers. All aboard, because the Choo Choo Charles content train has no stops in sight. Today, we're going to be diving and taking a look at the top 10 scariest missions in Choo Choo Charles. I'm Taylor, and I'll be conducting this fear train today. Let's get right into it. Number 10, the tutorial. So first up is going to be the tutorial level. I feel like that should give you an idea of how bone-chattering this game is going to be if I'm suggesting one of the scariest levels in the game is the level where they teach you how to play the game. You show up to the island and you meet a friendly face, Eugene, who you think is going to be your closest friend throughout this nightmare. You and the player have been old friends. He teaches you a little bit about the island, what to expect out there, and he bestows upon you your real best friend, your train. Everything seems to be going absolutely great until the star of the show, Charles, decides to make an appearance, show up, attack you and Eugene, and to put Eugene in an early grave. We hardly knew ya. No matter how much you shoot or focus fire on Charles, there is nothing you can do to save Eugene, and it's a really harsh way of telling the player just what they're going to be up against in this game. Number 9, the Swamp Swimmer. Now, coming up next is going to be the side quest Swamp Swimmer. It's a pretty memorable one. In this side mission, you're tasked by Elizabeth Murkwater, who seems a lot like a witch. Maybe it's just the witch hat that makes me think that. And she wants you to fetch some meat to complete her stew. Sounds very simple and possibly beneficial, as I'm willing to bet she makes a good bowl of soup. Well, it's much easier said than done, because to get the meat you need for the soup, you need to cross a swamp, which just so happens to be infested with a vicious swamp monster that is looking to make you into a meal. That can never have anything, can we? It's not bad enough to have a demon train with spider legs crawling across the island. You're telling me that their waterways are also filled with little Loch Ness monsters? Unlike Charles, however, you've got no option or opportunity to fight the swamp monster at all, meaning your only hope is just taking things slow and steady and carefully to avoid getting eaten. Goes without saying, too, that just because you're dealing with a swamp monster does not mean that the demon homicidal murder train is going to be taking any time off of hunting you. He doesn't respect like that. It takes a while to reach the witch and to get to the swamp, so you are wide out in the open if any particularly hungry demon trains feel like starting something. Coming up next is going to be the infamous pickle mission. Funniest thing I ever seen. Somehow in a game with a demon train and a cult that worships the demon train, one of the strangest things in the entire game is this one lady who just loves pickles more than anyone ever could. I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. I love a nice dill with some Montreal smoked meat, maybe pastrami, but this lady takes it next level. So, take one guess just what this lady wants you to go risk life and limb to find. So you go out to risk it all for a jar of brine, which is a whole other thing altogether. But you get a big trek out in the wide open, meaning at any time, this simple grocery trip could turn disastrous if Charles feels like he wants to snag your Instacart order. If it wasn't for the fact that you get a great deal of scrap from old pickles for your trouble, I say this would not be worthwhile at all. There are other snacks out there, although probably not on this island. I don't think anything nice happens on this island. Number 7, the Gatling. Now, if you're looking to survive against a demon train, you're gonna need some proper artillery, you know? A good attitude only gets you so far. And when the game starts, your humble Choo Choo is kitted out with a fairly basic pea shooter that's barely enough to scratch the paint off old Charles, so you'll need to upgrade. One of the better additions to your locomotive's arsenal is Bob the Gatling. But the trouble is that Warren's goons got the parts first, and you'll need to do a bit of sneaky breaky action into one of their camps to get it. Now, with anything on foot, as soon as you leave that train, you expose yourself to being jumped by Charles at any time. So you got that to worry about. And then you also have to sneak into a camp filled to bursting with trigger-happy lunatics who worship the demon train as a god and tend to shoot first and ask questions never. And your best method of defending yourself against these guys is to crouch down in a ditch and cry and hope they go away. Of course, if that's not really your style, you can always go loud, ride your train up as close as you can to the camp and just let loose and open fire on them, or you can cross your fingers and hope that Charles comes and cleans up the mess for you. No matter how you end up going about it though, this one is nail-chewingly stressful and bound to get a few scares out of you. But that reward? Oh, makes it all worth it. Number 6, the Cloud Climber. Up next is going to be the mission Cloud Climber. You know, in a game that almost exclusively pits you on a train zipping around fighting another train, it stands out that one of the more tense missions in the game was the side quest Cloud Climber. Now, like all the side quests in the game, it's totally optional, so if it is not your thing, just skip it, but it gets you a good amount of scrap for your troubles. Ronnie asks you to scale this facility, and you will be doing a lot of precarious jumping. If you've got a fear of heights, oh, this mission's gonna get you. You'll be doing some platforming on some incredibly rickety bridges bridges, high above the ground, and there's a very, very good chance that all it takes is one wrong step to lead you being scraped off the rocks in the dirt below tomorrow morning. You have to take all these like wild leap of faith jumps that would make the Assassin's Creed guys blush. If you've ever played Far Cry 3 or 4, it reminded me a lot of when you have to climb the radio towers in this game, where you climb those like decrepit, like falling apart towers that seem like they're gonna fall apart at like any second, and you're like terrified the entire time you're gonna fall like 200 meters and just splat. Of course, in Choo Choo Charles, there's also a chance at any point during your ascent that, you know, the giant homicidal demon giga train will show up at the bottom just to taunt you and give you a really good reason to watch your step lest you fall inside his mouth. Number 5, Canyon Caper. This lucrative side mission has a pretty good scrap payout to soup up your train if all you care about is that scrap grind, but it comes at the cost of having to deal with more psycho cultists who are just waiting to fire at anything U-shaped. A mysterious man named Theodore has a proposition for you. Recover his property from the train yard and he'll compensate you immensely. Seems very fair, and he seems like a straight up businessman, so it seems like there's no bad parts to this deal. Of course, the train yard is very far away, meaning you have to journey all the way over there, praying that Charles is distracted with someone other than you. And when you finally arrive, you'll find that the place is being locked down by a raving cultist who's patrolling around looking for any would-be thieves, and you have to carefully maneuver yourself around him and play a dangerous game of red light, green light in the hopes of snatching the box from him. You don't have your train while you're in the camp, so you're always a little bit on edge that maybe, oh maybe, you'll step on the wrong branch or something, and something's gonna go chimney up, and he'll start blasting at you, and that darn train will come skittering out to ruin your day. And even though it's just one guy, he's still pretty ominous, you know? I get that he's one guy, but he's still one lunatic in a mask worshipping a train god. I'm not having any of that. Up next, number 4, North Mine, when you're fetching the blue egg. The start of this mission is already pretty creepy. When you hear that the way to stop Charles is that first, you gotta collect all of his eggs to get his attention. That works for me too. Right off the bat, you're asking questions about just what the nature of this monster is, and then you've gotta go begin the hunt proper. This takes you into one of the game's many creepy crawly mine shafts. You know, mine shafts as is kind of set off some of my heebly-jeeblies. It's a little claustrophobic for me, but this one really takes it. While you're safe from Charles inside the mine shaft, there's a strong possibility that he will be waiting for you outside, just whistling, letting you know that you're never going to be safe on the island as long as he's alive. And like the Canyon Caper, you gotta deal with one of Warren's lunatics wearing that terrifying mask, patrolling around looking for you to stop you from getting at the egg. The monster train is one thing, but these guys really get me too. I'm a huge fan of masked nutcases as horror game bad guys. I got kind of the same vibe as the Splicers from BioShock or the Police from We Happy Few. Anytime you had to tango with these guys, it did have me sweating just a little bit. Number 3, a mine or a tomb. Up next is the mission a mine or a tomb, which is a very valid question given the nature of this game. Like the previous point, this is another quest that sees you spelunking across one of the island's many mine shafts for some of Charles's eggs. Don't know why he couldn't just keep them all in one place. Now, all the mines are creepy, but this one is ghastly. It has a really foreboding, cold atmosphere and feels like it might end up being your tomb. As you keep pushing forward into the mine, you hear the telltale whistling of more of Warren's goons who seem to have taken up residence. Like before, you can't do much to hurt the guy and have to hope that you can just sneak past him undetected, significantly easier said than done. But if that isn't bad enough, after you get the egg, you're treated to more cultists taking blasts at you, and then a mad dash to your train as you're now in the middle of nowhere and primed and ready for a very angry Charles to come and strike you down for kidnapping. Number 2, Boulder Field Pages. Alright, coming in at the number 2 spot is going to be the side quest Boulder Field Pages. If you've played the game, this quest is a real standout, and it's a blatantly obvious homage to Slender, the YouTube horror game sensation that all the YouTubers and streamers were making react videos and let's plays in the back in the day. Ah, take me back, simpler times, eh? This side quest is basically just the game Slender copy and pasted into Choo Choo Charles. You go around collecting some mysterious pages around a haunted forest, and you're being pursued by a relentless spectral predator. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Well, it's as scary as Slenderman, but unlike Slenderman, however, this ghost doesn't flatline you outright, but instead just kicks you out of his haunted forest, which would be nice if the homicidal demon train wasn't still patrolling around the island just waiting to chomp at anybody. What's really unsettling about this whole mission is just how out of left field it all feels, you know? There's no other ghost on the island. There's a big scary demon train, and that's kind of taking most people's attention, but then over here on this one little part of the island, there's just a ghost, and it's never really explained more than Matt, or just what it was. I'm sure Matt Pat is working on a theory. Or Top 10 Gaming. I'm sure Top 10 Gaming is working on a theory, actually. We'll get on that. Number 1, finish it. And finally, my friends, at the number 1 spot, we're gonna have to go with finish it. This mission is what the entire game was building up towards. Literally, your main mission on the game is to end the demon train's reign of terror. That's why you're on the island. And this is the one where it all goes down. You get all the way up to the temple, and you're ambushed by a pack of Warren's lunatics, and make your way all the way up to summon Charles's attention. You're jumped by Sir Warren Charles III himself, who tries one last time in vain to stop you before Charles shows up and makes him into a snack. You know how you've been spending the whole game leveling up, trying to get as powerful as can be? Well, Charles had a similar idea, because when you guys duel proper, he's rebranded as Hell Charles. Somehow even more terrifying, more deadly than before. You go through an absolutely brutal boss fight against the demon train, and finally, after being tormented for hours, you watch him plummet into the ground, impaled by a spike. And you breathe out for the first time since you sat down thinking the nightmare is over. Except for the fact that the ending reveals there were thousands more eggs that you didn't know about. Oh, there's gonna be a lot more Charles where that came from. How long until we're doing top 10 things we know about Choo Choo Charles 2? Or should they call it Choo Choo Charles? Choo Choo Charles? Choo Charles Too Furious? Let me know down below in the comments, gang, what we're gonna call the second one. And thanks so much for watching, gamers. As always, it's been a blast. I'm Taylor. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.